Hi everyone, welcome to Art with Kathleen. Today we're going to do a really fun assignment. I always enjoy doing it because every time I do it it's a little different. So it's a tessellation pattern and there's kind of three parts to it. The first part is to create your tessellation or your pattern shape. And the second part is to draw it onto the paper. And the third part is to color it, all right? And I'm going to be doing three different samples for three different levels of art maker, okay? I'll do a very simplified example for my younger students, and then one that's a little bit more involved for my mid-grade students, second, third grade students, and then one that's a little bit more challenging for my fourth and fifth grade students. Anyone can do any of the patterns, any of the three I show. It's up to you. Pick one that kind of speaks to you. So what's a tessellation? A tessellation is when we cover a surface with a pattern of flat shapes so that they don't overlap or there's no gaps. So it's sort of like a puzzle that you're creating. You're creating like this puzzle piece that fits together everything you draw. So I'll show you a couple of samples, but let me go through the materials first. So number one, whatever surface you're going to work on, make sure you have something down protecting your table from the artwork, because you're going to be coloring and you might go off of the paper and you want to make sure that you don't color the table that you're on. So that's number one. The absolute basic materials you'll need are a piece of paper. Mine is 8.5 by 11, so a piece of printer paper. You can also choose, I did a tessellation on a piece of Trader Joe's bag, right? I cut it to 8.5 by 11, so you could do that as well. And you're going to need another little piece of paper cut out. Now this is cut out to, it's actually 2 inches and a quarter, 2¼ inches by 2¼ inches. Okay, you're going to need a little piece of paper cut like this. So my kinders and first graders, parents might need, or older sibling might need to help them cut this little piece of paper out. You're going to need a pair of scissors, some tape, something to draw your tessellation onto your paper. So it can be a ballpoint pen, it can be a Sharpie marker, or another marker of a different color. Okay, I will use a Sharpie for mine. And then you're going to need one of these three. So either 2 colors in markers. It can be 3 colors, 2 or 3 colors. 2 or 3 colors of crayon, or this is oil pastel because I don't have crayons, or 2 or 3 colors of colored pencils, okay? But you only need one of these sets, all right? Just choose which one. And I'm going to show you samples that I made with each, okay? So we know what a tessellation is. We know what our materials are. So let me show you my tessellation for my youngest artist. This was the little piece of square paper that I showed you in the beginning, right? We're going to cut this to look like this, and I'll show you how it's done. And then this is my regular paper, and this is the repeating pattern, right? It's a repeating pattern that fits together perfectly. There's no gaps, there's no overlaps, all right? And I used 3 different colors on this, and I just alternated them, right? I would start with one color, second color, third color. I'd go back to the first color, second color, third color, and on and on and on, all right? So this will be my easiest tessellation for my younger students. I always put eyes on mine for some reason because I always see kind of animals or creatures, so I always put eyes, which is funny, but I made a sample that doesn't have eyes. So my sample that does not have eyes, it has one eye just to show you what it would look like with an eye. They're really beautiful to do just as a pattern as well. Without eyes, here's the eye if you wanted to make the eye. This will be for my second and third grade students. And the little square that I used initially, right? I cut this shape out of, and I'll show you how we do that, okay? So that's, and I also used my oil pastels on this, so you can see what the oil pastel looks like, all right? For my last students, my 4th, 5th graders, I did this sample on the Trader Joe's bag because I really like the brown paper, and I chose kind of a muted kind of earthy monochrome palette for that. I just used a black marker. I used a gray marker, and then I used the color of the paper. So the color of the paper can also be an option to use, right? So that's my 4th and 5th grader, and it's a little bit more complex shape, okay? It has some little bit more complexities to it. So let's start, okay? Let's begin. So the first one I'm going to lay out is my tessellation pattern for my youngest students. So we have this little piece of paper that somebody's cut out for you, right? The 2 1/4 by 2 1/4, 2 1/4 by 2 1/4 square, and we have to make the little pattern. It looked kind of like a fish to me, so I'm going to call it the fish pattern. So the first thing we want to do to create our pattern is we want to take our marker that we're going to use to draw with, and we want to try to find the center of the little square and put a dot on it, right? Little center of the square. Okay, from there, I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm going to always start as much as I can right at the corner of the paper, okay, one of the sides. I'm going to open my scissors up, and I'm going to start right at the corner, and I'm going to cut a straight line all the way till it hits that dot that I made, right? And then I'm going to go to the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start in the corner, and I'm going to cut until I reach the dot, and hopefully I'll cut the shape out, okay? So now I have this shape in here, and this is an important step, all right? This shape has to be taped to the opposite end of this piece. So I want to make sure that I just lift it up and drive it all the way over to the other side and tape the flat side to the flat side of the original brown piece of paper, right? So from there, I need my tape. I want to put it down, and I want to line it up as best I can. You can have someone help you with this. And I want to take a little piece of my tape, and I just want to tape it best I can, nice and lined up together, right? And I've made my tessellation, right? That's all there is to it. 2 cuts, 1, 2, pull it forward, place it on the other side, tape it, and you're done, okay? So from here, I'm going to start drawing. This is part 2 now. I'm going to start drawing it in on my paper, right? And this takes a little bit of patience, and you have to kind of really think about how you're going to do it. I'm going to use my marker to draw in. Now remember, I'm using a Sharpie, so if I make a mistake, I can't erase it. So I guess if my younger students wanted to use a pencil, you could and go over it with a Sharpie, but I think that you'll be okay just using a Sharpie. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little fish, and I'm going to take him all the way over to the top right-hand corner of the paper. Now what's important to do is make sure his nose is touching the end of the paper, and that his body up here is touching the edge of the paper. So I have to shift him until I get him nice and flush like that. So he meets the top of the paper, and his nose is touching the tip of the paper on the right-hand side. And then I use my marker to trace him on to the paper. What's nice about using the Trader Joe's bag, the little heavier paper, I used the brown paper bag from Trader Joe's, or just a grocery store paper bag, is that it's a little thicker piece of paper, so it doesn't bend and crumple as easy. It's just a little thicker. It helps this process. So once I put the fish in once, I'm just going to shift him down, and here's the puzzle part. His nose has to fit into his tail of the first fish. So the nose has to fit into the tail, right? So if you're right like this, you just kind of slide him to the left until his nose fits right into that space, right? And again, his top is nice and flush, and then you're going to outline him again. Right? And then again, I'm going to shift him over to the left till his nose fits into his tail, and I'm going to trace him again. And I do this all the way until I reach the end of the page. So here we go. And you'll notice, like, uh-oh, I don't have enough room to make another fish. Well, that's okay. That's how tessellations work. Still shift him down, put him in here, and just outline what you can, what's left. It looks like that's the only line I can make. Okay, so there's one line. Now I'll do one more line. Here's the second line and how it's going to work. So instead of just starting like I did before, I'm going to shift it up a little bit. If you do it this way, it's completely okay. But you'll notice how the nose of my second line, this is my second line, you'll notice how the nose is in the middle of this fish here. So I'm staggering my drawing as I do it, right? So we have fish nose, no fish nose, fish nose, no fish nose, right? They get staggered. So if I did it like this, then the noses would always be lining up. And I don't want to do that. So what I'm going to do, see this part that I taped, how it folds up? I'm going to shift this forward until that line of the original paper that I had meets up to the edge of the paper, like this. And then I'm going to trace it. All right, we'll do a couple more and then I'll let you do some. I'll do some time-lapse photography on this so I can move fast through this and you can still watch me do it. But I'll do 2 rows slowly with you. And I just keep shifting them down. And notice how I did this. The nose now is in the middle of the body of the top fish. The nose in the bottom row is in the middle of the body of the top fish. You want to do that. It just looks a little bit more interesting. And it makes it look more like a little school of fish swimming instead of more of just a regular pattern. So here, you notice I'm not going to be able to finish the whole line, but that's okay. I just draw what's here on the paper. All right? So I'll do the time lapse. Oops, look what I did. See, I missed up there. You might find some areas where you missed. You just go back up there, place it down, and retrace it in. So from here, I'll show you how I put the eyes in after I'm done with all of the putting the rest of the fish in. Okay? And you'll notice when you get to this side, it's going to be fine. And then when you get to this side, it's going to go off the paper a little bit. That's okay. Just keep tracing it. And don't worry if it goes off the paper. Just trace the part of the fish that stays on the paper. What I'll do is I'll do one here to show you that. Let's see if I can do that. So I'm going to start this row again, here at the bottom, with my fish's nose touching the edge of the paper and the top part of the fish resting against that top line. Oops. Now, let me show you what it's going to look like on the bottom, and then I'll let you do the rest. So instead of having this one like this, with the nose touching, we need to stagger, right? So we need to shift this forward again until the flat part of the square meets up against the edge of the paper, and then you'll notice we can't trace the whole fish, we just trace part of the fish, like that. So the bottom row is going to look like this. It's going to look a little only a part of the fish will be in on the lower row. Okay, so I'll let you finish that, and then we'll meet back when all the lines are in, and we'll do the eyeball. So here's the design for my second and third graders. So you guys are going to have a little bit of a bump in the degree of difficulty, but still completely manageable. So you see the little tessellation here was once a square like this, right? And I cut something out of 2 of the sides and I pasted them to their opposite side. So let's do that with this little piece that we have. I chose brown in the Trader Joe's or the grocery bag because it's a little stiffer, and you're going to be using this to trace. So it's nice if it has a little bit of stiffness to it. So if you can, cut this out of the brown grocery bag material. So what we're going to do is we're going to create our tessellation, and we're going to draw it on the page sequentially like this, one right after the other, and it's going to fit together like a puzzle piece. So what I did is, the first thing I did is I took my Sharpie or my marker and I created a little hole, a little dot right in the middle. That kind of shows me approximately where the middle is. Now on my one side, I want to create a little pattern, a little wavy line. We don't want to make things too difficult or too complicated, because as you can see, when it's finished, it's very complicated all by itself. So we want to try to keep the designs we make initially a little more low-key. So what I did here is I started in one corner and I finished in the other. So I start with my marker in one corner and I just put in a wavy line, and I didn't make the wavy line too tall, right? I just put like 3 hills, and then I ended on the other side of my that side of the paper, right? So the line goes from corner to corner, all right? Then I'm going to shift my paper around. Make sure you don't get marker on your white paper if you're using white paper. So what I don't want to do is go past that dot in any of the line making I make. I don't want to go past that dot, because then it'll make it a little more too complicated. So I'm going to do the same thing I did before, and I'm going to start in the corner, and this time I'm going to make the wavy lines a little more exaggerated. But I'm going to start in this corner, I'm just going to overlap it here, and then I'm going to end in this corner as well, right? So I'll start here, and I'm going to make that little bit, and I'm going to end it here in the corner, okay? So we have both of these. I cap my marker, put it aside. Now it's time to cut it. So I want to make sure, this is an important part, I cut it out as best I can, right? All the way down to the corner. And I pull it out, and I lift it up, and I shift it over to the other side of the paper, and I tape it, right? So let me show you that again. Here it is, I cut it out, I pull it out, and I just shift it like it hovers over the top of the paper, and I put it here. I tape it on, just like that. And I want to try to make the ends meet up so they look nice and clean. Take a little piece of my tape, tape it on, right? Now, as you might be able to guess, I'm going to do the same thing with this side. I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to tape it over here. So I'm going to start here. I can start at the end, but they overlapped, so I'm going to start right here. I'm going to cut this piece out. It's kind of low hill, right? And again, I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to hover it above, and I'm going to switch it to the other side, and I'm going to lock it into place and tape it on. That's an important part of the tessellation. So here's my tessellation. I have it made, right? Now it's time to trace this on the paper that I chose. So I'm going to pull out my white paper again, and I'll do a couple of rows, and then I'll let you finish up, and we'll meet back when we've got it all penciled in. So what you want to do is we want to start in the top right corner, and we're going to move left, and then we're going to go down to the next row, and we're going to move left. Last row, move left. Third row, last row. The last row, this fourth row, is probably not going to have the whole tessellation. It's probably going to be cut off somewhat, but that's okay. So I want to start this with the rolly hills touching the tallest one touching the edge of the paper, and the tallest one here touching the edge of the paper, right? And then I'm going to take my Sharpie, like this, and I'm going to outline my tessellation as best I can. You have to hold it down with one hand, outline it with the other. hold it down with one hand, outline it with the other. Okay, and then you're going to lift it up. You're going to shift it down, just like you did when you cut that piece and you just shifted it over to the other side. You're going to do the same thing with this. You're just going to shift it left until these two little peaks fit right into where they belong, just like a puzzle. Fits in perfectly. And then you trace it again. And just take the tracing slow. It might be a little frustrating. I use a Sharpie or a thicker marker because it's just a little more forgiving. It's a little more surface of marker, so some of it always gets on the paper. And then you're gonna shift it again to the left until it fits, locks back into that other side. And you're just gonna keep doing this all the way to the end of the page. And it can be a little challenging. It does take some patience, right? Shift it, place it there, and then all right, so you'll notice I don't have enough to make the rest of this a whole tessellation, but that's okay. Just shift it on down, and you just draw what's available for the paper. The paper ends, the paper ends. It's okay, the pattern works. All right, so there's our first row, okay? I'm gonna try it with a different color marker because I just wanna see when you color it what the different color marker looks like. So you could actually do this with not a black marker, with a different color marker. So starting the second row, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna find how the puzzle piece fits, right? So I'm gonna lock it into its space there, and you'll notice that the peak of one of these little wavy lines hits the end of the paper perfectly, and then I'm going to draw it in with this. This might be kind of fun. Maybe I'll alternate. I'll do the next row black and then the next row orange. That might be kind of fun. Have fun with the materials, and if you can think of something different to do than other than I'm doing, you know, you don't have to draw the same rounded shapes. Definitely keep it simple, absolutely keep it simple, but you can draw a little different wavy pattern than I drew, right? It doesn't have to be exactly like I did. Two more. And the last one again is going to be just a partial tessellation because we ran out of paper. All right, so there's row 2. And you're going to do that probably 2 more times. You have one, and then you'll have another half of a tessellation down below. All right, so I'll let you finish those 2 rows up, and we'll meet back to talk about coloring and if you're going to put the eye in. All right, so for my older students, a little bit more of a challenge with the tessellation pattern. You'll see this is the pattern that goes here. what we're going to do is we're going to take this little square that I told you to cut, and you'll notice that it fits right on top of this. This was once a little square piece of paper, right? And I put a design on two sides. I cut them out and I shifted them over to the other side and I taped them. So that's what we're gonna do. So let's start. What I liked about this one is that I had two different types of line work, and that created kind of a more dynamic patterning for this lesson, for this one. So the first thing we want to do, I am going to actually, well, I'm going to do that later. First thing you do is you take your pen or pencil, and I want you to put a little dot in the middle of your little brown square piece of paper. And then you're going to draw a wavy pattern on one side of, I'm going to copy this one, on one side of this little square, right? My line is going to begin in this corner and my line is going to end in that corner. That's what's important. And I'm going to start in this corner. I'm going to make a kind of a larger hill, a medium hill, and then I'm going to go into a larger hill. Then I'm going to do this kind of little point, and I'm going to end right at that corner. Now notice I did not go beyond that dot. We want to keep this line work below the dot. Don't go into the second half of the paper. All right? And then we're going to shift you're going to shift the paper over to the right side. Okay, so now we're going to, I'm shifting this over, we're going to create this pattern here. And this pattern is, we're going to start in the corner again. I'm going to have to, I want to come around this. I don't want to cross over it. And we're going to end the line over here in this corner, right? And I'm going to make like two little hilly areas. So I'm going to go up, down, up, and end here. When I'm cutting them out, I'm going to make sure that I leave a little section like this, right? I don't want to cut that off. That's going to be really important. So first, let's cut these two spiky hills off. I'm going to start in the corner, and I'm going to trim them off. This takes a little bit of patience and precision, okay? Because this is a really small little area here, so you don't want to make sure you don't cut that out. So once you make your cut, you're going to lift this up and you're going to make it hover all the way across the page, and you're just going to attach it to the other side. All right, let's show you that again. So you've cut it out, you lift it off, let it hover across, and then you're going to put it down and you're going to tape it. That's where this is where the tape comes in. You're going to try to make sure that the ends meet up on both sides. Get a little piece of tape, not a lot. Oop. Right? And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to cut this one out, I'm going to tape it over here. So I want to start in this corner. I'm going to cut these rolly hills out. This is kind of like the second, third graders did, but it takes a little bit more precision, a little bit more attention. It mixes sharp points with the rounded corners. So notice I have still have that little tail left intact. That's really important. So now I'm going to pull this out, hover it across, and tape it to the other side, okay? That's a really important element, is that you don't shift this in some way and put it in and turn it over or turn it around this way. It just has to come up and over and down. And then we're going to tape it on there, okay? So it meets up nice and clean. Tape it down. Okay, so here's our tessellation. Now we get to put this on the paper. So I'm choosing to do the brown bag again. Hopefully you can see well. And this is where I'm going to actually use a different color. Instead of outlining in black, I'm going to outline with this orange, just to see if I can add another color into this that's kind of fun. So feel free to choose a different color to outline with. So the first thing I want to do is, for this one, what I did, which made it a little easier, is I took one of these flaps that I taped and I just pushed it back a little bit so I have that nice straight edge. And I go up into the top right-hand corner and I nestle that right in the corner, right? So this guy is going to almost touch the side of the paper, and this side of it is just going to lay flat against that, right? And then I'm going to trace it. And this can be a little, you know, I don't know, you have to have a little patience. Sometimes the paper slips. I really like using the brown paper bags from the grocery stores for this because they have a little stiffness to them and it's easier to trace. And then I just shift it over to the left. I just shift it until it locks into place like a puzzle. It fits. And then shift it. And trace it. All right, finished. Shift it. Fit it in like a puzzle. And trace it. One last time, you'll notice that it's not all going to fit on the paper because we've run out of paper. Just trace what does fit on the paper. Okay. Now I have my first row laid out. Now for the second row, you need to do the same thing you did before. So you could place your tessellation up into the first one you drew, and then you can just slide it down to the next row until it fits in like a puzzle piece. And you want to make sure that this bottom tail is getting at least close to the edge of the paper, and then trace. And then we'll go again. I'll finish this row up and then I'll let you guys do the last two rows. The last two rows are going to be, you're going to have one complete row on the third row, and then the fourth and last row you're probably going to have you know, only part of the tessellation showing. The rest of it will just kind of flow off the page, but that's okay. Like kind of like this. All right, so I'll let you do the last two, and then we'll meet back to talk about color.
በቃላት ድርድር በሙዚቃ ቃና ስሜት ስታብራራ ነፍሴ ስታጣራ አየሁኝ ጥበብ ሰማሁኝ እውቀት።
And you can see we've laid in the rest of our tessellations, right? Just for fun, for my kinders and first graders, I did a couple of them with a different color marker just to see what it would look like. And that might be actually kind of fun if you did more of these, to do not all of them with black marker, do some of them with different colored markers. Okay, so you all should have a piece of paper in front of you that you finished doing all your tessellations with. So let's talk about eyes now. You don't have to put in eyes. You can just make, remember, a nice pattern. I think it looks beautiful without the eyes. Just to have a beautiful two colors alternating is really beautiful, right? If you want to put eyes in, very simple. For my kinder group, the noses are going this way. So again, you have this like arrow shape or this mountain shape laying on its side. You want to start where that meets the edge of the paper, and you want to maybe give yourself a finger's width, and then you just draw a circle and you put a dot in the middle. All right, and if it goes a little back or it's a little more front, whatever, that's totally fine. Your choice. Eye or no eye. I'll put an eye on the top row. Okay. Same thing with my second, third graders. If you want to put an eye, you can put it in the middle. That would be kind of neat, like an alien. Or maybe you want your orientation to be this way. When I look at it this way, it looks like a fish more to me. This way doesn't look so much like a fish. This way kind of looks like a fish. So I'm going to put my eye. I'll put one eye, and I'll put it like that. All of a sudden, this looks kind of like a fish with its mouth open. So second, third graders, if you want to put eyes on, please do so. They go a little above and to the right of the mouth. All right? Otherwise, don't worry about the eye, and we'll do the coloring. Same with let's see how these look. This looks like some kind of little bird or something. And then here it kind of looks, with the horizontal orientation, it looks a little bit more like a fish. But when I turn it vertical, it almost looks like a cardinal or a bird. So if you wanted to put an eye on, you could. Up to you. I'm going to put an eye on, and I'll put it in this way. I'll put one eye. Okay, so you can copy that for all of them or not, your choice. So let's go first with my kinders. I'll get you started, and then I'll work on with my other ones. So my kinders, remember, I used my colored pencils. Now I used 3 colors for here, but you don't have to use 3. It might be easier just to pick 2. So let's take, we'll take dark pink and light pink. And you're just gonna alternate them. So you're gonna put, if light pink is for this fish, dark pink is here. And then we go light pink here, and we go dark pink here. And we go light pink here, and we go dark pink here, right? So they alternate going across the page, but they also alternate coming down. So if we used light pink here, what color do you think we'd use for the one below it? Dark pink. Light pink, dark pink, right? And if this is light pink, what is this? Dark pink. Light pink, dark pink, light pink, dark pink. Okay, so let me do a few of them with you, and then I'll let you do them, and we'll meet back when we're all finished. So remember, I'm always going in one direction, and you can use crayons for this too. Crayons works just as well. If you're using colored pencils, see how I'm kind of using the pencil kind of flat? I'm not using it like a writing pencil with the harsh tip. I'm using it on its side, because that'll put the color on really fast. And notice I'm always going in one direction. I'm trying not to go in different directions. If I have to a little bit down here, I will, but I try to always go in one direction. Now I'm going to switch up, and I'm going to go to my dark pink. Pencil lying on the flat side. This is where it's important to have something down on the table, because you might go over the paper, and you want, if you're using markers instead of pencils, you don't want to put marker on the paper, on the table. So good time to check and see if you have a cardboard like this protecting your table. All right, then if I've done dark pink, I'm going to go back to my light pink. And I like to alternate and not just use one color because if I just used one color, then all the shapes would start to blend together. So I like to alternate. I like to use the first color and then do the second color and then use the first color again. If I just went, I could use this and do this one and then skip a fish and do this one and then skip a fish and do this one, right? But I'm more likely to make a mistake doing that and accidentally color two fish together, right? If you do, is it the end of the world? Nope, it's not the end of the world. But I'm doing it this way just to kind of make sure I don't make that mistake. Okay, next back to my pink color. And back to my dark pink color. Okay, so just to go over, I'll let you kind of do the rest. I think you probably understand what we're going for, alternating colors. So don't forget the next one down, you have to think about what the first color you used in the first row, right? It was the light pink, so I want to make sure I use the different color, the dark pink, to begin my second row, and so on and so forth. Then you'll make sure that your colors are alternating in all the rows, changing up in all the rows. Okay, and pink goes here. All right, kindergartners, your choice, eyes or no eyes, I leave it up to you. Colors are your choice too. Pick two colors, 3 if you want to, at least 2, and enjoy. I'll meet you back when it's all done. So here we are. I've only used one eye. I'm not going to put any more eyes in. That's your choice. I'm going to start with my colors. Okay, so colors, I'm going to use the same 2 colors that I used in this, and I'm just going to show you how I laid it in. I'm going to start with this left-hand side because I can really see this shape really well. And I'm going to pick my first color. So for me, I'm going to pick the green. And remember, you can use colored pencils, you can use markers, you can use ballpoint pens, just at least if you can get 2 colors that you can alternate, that would be a great thing. You can use 3 colors. I could use the color of the paper, right? I could put green, I could leave the white, and I could put yellow, right? And then just go back and do start green again, or I can make that one white. So I can use the color of the paper for a 3rd color if I want, or I don't need to. I'm going to use 2 and I'm going to alternate them. So I'm going to start with my green. And I'm going to try to keep always going with using my crayon or my color oil pastel, whichever you use, in one direction instead of going in all different directions. Now I'm just going to switch up with my yellow. That's interesting with the orange. That's kind of cool. It's another way to add a 3rd color, or an additional color into it, is to make the outline a different color. Okay. And I need to make the one in front yellow too. All right. Then I go back to the beginning. And my first one is this little piece here, and I need to make it, I need to alternate them across the page, right, horizontally, and I need to make sure that they're alternating vertically as well. So I had yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow. Yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow. So that it has to alternate going down as well. And that's going to keep me on track so I don't accidentally put the same color right next to each other, and then it makes kind of like this, look like this one big fish, right? The problem with oil pastels is they get other colors on them, and then they accidentally get on your page. You have to clean your oil pastels. I don't think you'll have to do that so much with crayons, but you may have to do it more with oil pastels. So I think you get the idea. You're going to be alternating colors going horizontally, and you're alternating colors going vertically. Do one more, and then you guys will take it from there. All right, so color choice is yours. What kind of materials you use for the colors, whether it's oil pastels or crayons or markers or ballpoint pens, it's up to you. At least 2 colors, possibly 3 if you want. Eyeballs if you want. No eyeballs. That's okay, still beautiful. Kind of has a different feel without the eyeballs, okay? And make sure you get these guys too. You have those little tiny ones up there, so we'll have to do that. All right, I'll meet you back when you've got it all colored in, and we'll finish up. All right, so my 5th graders, I did mine on brown paper. You don't have to do yours on brown paper. You might have done yours on white paper. I'm going to use markers because it's the 3rd type of material, and I like markers. And if they're on white paper, especially, they're going to be really bright. The brown paper is more earthy, so I chose to use more contrasty colors, the black and the gray, which I like. And I'm going to see how it's going to look with this this orange outline. Might be a little troublesome because you might have to work a little harder to keep it out of that orange zone. If you cross over into the orange zone, you disrupt the line, and that might be a problem. So, whereas I like the look of the orange, black might be a better possibility, but we'll check it out. Okay, so let's start at the top of the page. We'll start on the left-hand side, and what I did on mine, if you want to do it just like mine, I did a very special kind of way, and I'll show you, talk you through how I did mine. But you don't have to do it like this. Like, you could just choose 3 colors and just alternate, you know, red, yellow, blue, and then change it. So if you started here red, you don't want to put red here. You might want to put yellow, blue, red, right? And then go back to blue, yellow, red, whatever. You want to be able to constantly alternate, not only horizontally, but vertical as well. All right? I hope that instruction is clear. If you want to do it like I did it, you're going to want to start with a color. I'll start with black like I did here. On the far left, I started with black. On the biggest one, there's a little non-black, but I'm going to start with black, and I used the brown as almost a 3rd color. But what I did is I didn't alternate it every 3rd one. I alternated the brown every 2nd one. So look at here what I did. I did black, brown, gray, brown, black, and then I went brown, gray, brown, black, brown. So my brown is my every second color, and then my gray or my black is alternated after that, okay? It gives you this nice diagonal of the same colors, and it helps break it up so that all colors stand independently. If I was putting gray and black together, and then I have a brown, and then I might have another gray and black together, it wouldn't feel so equal, right, and balanced. You'd see these clusters of dark colors, and then you'd see this light color. So if I'm using this background color, I like to put it every second one. So let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to start with my black. Have to be really careful not to color up the orange. It's a little more challenging. All right, and then I'm going to skip this one. I want this brown. And then I'm going to go to my gray. Maybe it's better to outline like this if you have another color that you outlined with, that you drew the tessellation in. Let's say you didn't use the black, you used another color. Maybe it's better when you go to the coloring part, like now, to outline like this. And then you can work inside of it a little easier. Then you protect that color that you drew with. That might be the safe way to do it. Okay, now I want to keep the brown in this one, and I want to go back to the black. Okay, so now starting the second row, so I ended it with black, and then I leave a little bit of the brown. That's always the second color. And then coming back here, I don't want to start black again because it'll make this piece look like one big huge shape. So I'm going to start with another color, but I think I'm going to do the same thing here that I'm doing here. I'm always going to make the second color brown. So I'm going to leave this brown, and then I'm going to do gray here. Oops. Yipes. I want gray. I'm going really fast, so my outline isn't actually catching the whole part of the page. You can do it more carefully than I am. But it's going to make a nice diagonal gray shapes. And then I'm going to skip, leave that brown, and I'm going to make my next one black. Okay, so I'm going to finish this one up, and then I'll meet you back. We'll finish ours up on our own. I won't go ahead and color them all on film. I think you understand. If you need me to re-explain it, just pause the video, rewind it, and listen to the explanation again, okay? We'll meet back in a little bit, guys. All right, so welcome back. I think everybody should be done coloring by now. So let's look at the finished products of the ones I did. I did it a little fast. Ran into a little problems, and I'll tell you what it is. But let's look at it. So this is the original Kinder one I did, right? I used 3 colors, dark pink, orange, and light pink, right? And I alternated them, and I put eyeballs on, right? And then my finished one was just alternating colors, right? Light pink, dark pink, which I like. It's kind of a nice pattern. Not sure I liked the orange. I kind of like the darker outline, and I do like the eyeballs. I just do like the eyeballs. So I think I liked my first one better. That's Kinder. So second and third, same thing. I'm not sure if I'm crazy about the orange, but maybe a different color would have been nice, like a dark blue or something. I just feel like that strong dark line is nicer for the piece. This one I don't mind not having the eyeballs. I think it's a strong enough pattern to hold with the color, but I did run into using, and you might have this with a crayon, that it's a little harder to control because the crayon doesn't have a fine tip on it, so it goes over the line a lot easier, and it makes it a lot harder to kind of have it nice and clean. But love the colors. I liked the contrasty colors, I really do. Last one is again the fourth, fifth grade. I definitely like the eyeballs on this one too. I just like that little circle. For some reason, it's like another element that makes it interesting. But don't mind this one as well. I do like the orange outline on this one. It works for some reason for me for this one. I think it's just because everything's so monochrome, kind of grays and neutrals, and then that little splash of color on the outline is actually works for me. So I hope you had fun with the tessellation assignment, and as always, show it to me on Fresh Schools if you're my community students, and hope you had fun. See you next time. Bye guys.